All right, future truckers, let's dive into pre-trip inspections. We're gonna tackle the air brake check today. You know that one that'll send you packing if you don't get it right. We're gonna crack open the CDL manual and I mean really break it down so you can totally own this thing.
It's about more than just passing a test.
Yeah.
It's about making sure you're confident and safe when you're out there on the road. That's what's really important.
Absolutely. Now, this isn't about just memorizing the answers from the book. It's about really understanding how these systems work. And speaking of systems, let's talk air brakes. Why are they like the big kahuna of the pre-trip inspection?
Well, imagine this for a second. You're heading down a mountain road fully loaded and suddenly, bam, no brakes. Not a good situation, right? That's why we take air brakes so seriously.
Yeah.
They're the heart of safe trucking.
Okay, point taken. I can live without that visual. So the manual mentions different versions of the air brake test. Is it like a choose your own adventure on how to fail your CDO?
Not exactly. It's more like having all the tools in your toolbox. You might not need every single tool for every single job, but you better believe you need to know how to use each one. The CBL examiners want to see that you really understand air brake systems, no matter what scenario they throw at you.
Gotcha. So it's all about mastering the fundamentals and not just cramming for specific scenarios. What's the first thing we tackle in our air brake deep dive?
First things first, building pressure and checking for any leaks. We're talking engine on, build that pressure up to where the governor cuts out. That's usually somewhere between 120 to 140 psi for those of you keeping score at home. Then engine off, key on Chan. And here's the important part. Release those tractor protection and parking brakes. Apply the foot brake and keep your eyes glued to that gauge for a whole minute.
Sounds intense. What are we looking for here? Is the Neil doing a dance?
Hopefully not.
Yeah.
You want to see that pressure drop as little as possible. The manual says no more than a 3 psi drop for a single vehicle and 4 psi for a combination vehicle in that 1 minute time frame. Anything more than that, and you've got yourself a leak, my friend.
Leaks are bad, leaks are bad. Got it. How do we track down these pressure sapping culprits in the real world?
Now you're thinking like a mechanic. It's a combination of knowing your truck and using your senses, like a hissing sound that's a dead giveaway. But you also want to run your hand along the air lines. Feel for that telltale coolness. That means air is escaping. With practice, you'll develop a sixth sense for these things.
So it's not just about what the gauge tells you, but also about getting hands-on and really getting to know your truck. I like it. What happens if that pressure starts to drop despite our best efforts?
That's when your trusty sidekick, the low air warning system, swoops in to save the day. Think of it like a smoke detector, but for your air brakes.
Because catching that pressure drop early is way better than the alternative.
You got it. Engine still off, keys on photo. Start fanning off air pressure by pumping that foot brake. And listen carefully. You want those low air warning signals to be screaming at you before the pressure goes below 60 psi. We want it to warn us before things get hairy.
Okay, that makes sense. It's like a safety net before you actually need the safety net. But what if the pressure keeps dropping even with the warnings? Are we talking runaway truck on a mountain scenario again?
Don't worry, we've got one more layer of protection, the tractor protection valve and the parking brake. These are your automatic backup. They kick in when things get tough.
Give me the details. How do these lifesavers work?
As you keep fanning off that air pressure around 40 psi for a tractor trailer, the tractor protection valve should engage. You'll definitely hear it. For other vehicles, it's the parking brake valve that jumps into action. This entire system is designed to make sure there's always a backup plan, a last line of defense to keep your truck in check, even in a worst-case scenario.
Okay, that's reassuring. So it's not enough to just know these parts exist. We have to understand how they work together. The pressure points the whole shebang. It's like a carefully choreographed safety dance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the whole point of this dance is to keep you and everyone else on the road safe. Speaking of safety dances, let's switch gears for a minute and talk about hydraulic brakes. Not all trucks have them.
But if ours does, we gotta know how to check them right. Hit us with those hydraulic brake must-knows.
All right, so hydraulic brakes, think of them as the trusty sidekick to our air brake superhero. They might not be on every rig, but when they are, we got to make sure they're ready for action. It's all about a three-step process. First up, pump those brakes 3 times, nice and easy, then hold that pedal down for a good 5 seconds. You're looking for that pedal to be firm and unyielding, like a rock.
Solid as a rock, that's what we like to hear. What's next on the hydraulic checklist?
Next, we're listening for that backup singer, the reserve system. If your vehicle has a hydraulic brake reserve system, here's the move. Key off, press that brake pedal, and listen closely. You should hear the electric motor kick in. It's like the reserve system is warming up, ready to take center stage if the main act falters.
Gotta love a good backup plan. What about to wrap up our hydraulic brake inspection?
One last thing. Make sure that warning buzzer or light is off. No disco ball action here, and you're good to go.
Phew, so much to checking brakes, who knew? Definitely more than just a tap, and I hope for the best. But hey, that's why we deep dive right, arming you with the knowledge to ace that CDL test and more importantly be safe out there. Speaking of the open road, our CDL manual adventure continues beyond the brakes. What else should we be looking at?
Oh yeah, we've only just begun. This manual is packed with details about checking everything from lights and signals. Got to make sure those blinkers are working. No one wants to be deciphering hand signals out there, to tire condition and coupling systems. It's the works.
Because a proper pre-trip inspection means making sure that entire truck is road ready.
Right. You got it. It's all about taking responsibility for your vehicle
Right.
and understanding that you're responsible for everyone else on the road too.
It's like that old saying, with great power comes great responsibility, but with 18 wheels and a whole lot of cargo. This manual really breaks it all down into bite-sized pieces, though. It's not just a big, scary list. It guides you through everything.
Exactly. And it's not just about what to check, but how to check it. We're talking specific measurements like those tire tread depths we all know and love, visual cues, and even using your ears to make sure things sound right. It's about using all your senses to really connect with your truck.
I'm all about connecting with my truck. But even with the best intentions, new drivers can still make mistakes during the pre-trip inspection. What are some common pitfalls to watch out for?
One thing I see a lot is folks rushing through the inspection. It's easy to get flustered, especially on test day, but remember, it's not a race. Take your time, use a checklist if you need to, no shame in that, and really get your hands dirty.
Sometimes you gotta get up close and personal with those tires and hoses.
Yeah, you said it. Another common mistake is only focusing on what you can see and forgetting about what you can hear. Your ears are just as important as your eyes in a pre-trip.
Makes sense. Those sounds can tell you a lot. A weird squeak here, a hiss there. Those are like clues.
Exactly. Things like listening for air leaks or any strange noises coming from your brakes. That's how you catch those problems early on. Think of yourself as a detective searching for any clue that something might be off.
I love that channel your inner Sherlock Holmes and inspect that truck like a crime scene. Speaking of tools, any must-haves for our future truckers out there?
A good flashlight is essential. You never know what's lurking in those dark corners. And of course, a tire pressure gauge and a good pair of gloves are always handy. Having the right tools not only makes the inspection smoother, but it shows the examiner you're prepared and serious about safety.
It's like showing up for a job interview dressed to impress. Except the job is safe and responsible trucker. And the interviewer holds the keys to your CDL. Speaking of examiners, the manual is clear that you'll need to show off these checks during your CDL test. Any advice on how to really wow them?
Confidence is key. Know your stuff inside and out, practice until it becomes second nature, and don't be afraid to talk through what you're doing. Show the examiner that you understand the why behind the what.
Yeah, engage those brains. It's one thing to memorize the steps, but showing that you understand the reasoning behind them, that's next-level trucking knowledge.
Absolutely. They're not just looking for someone who can recite the manual. They want someone who gets it, someone who understands the importance of a thorough pre-trip inspection and can demonstrate that knowledge with confidence.
Because at the end of the day, it's about more than just passing a test. It's about being responsible for a massive vehicle and whatever it's carrying. Speaking of responsibility, there's one more crucial aspect of pre-trip, post-trip life that we need to cover.
Ah, yes. The often forgotten but equally important post-trip inspection.
Because it's not just about starting your trip safely, but making sure that truck is ready for the next driver, right?
Right. Think of it like this.
It's like passing the baton in a relay race, but instead of a baton, it's an 18-wheeler loaded down with who knows what.
You got it. And you definitely don't want to be the one passing on a problem that you could have caught earlier. The post-trip inspection is your chance to do a good deed for the next driver. Give them a heads up about any potential issues that might have popped up during your shift.
So it's kind of like leaving a note for your roommate. Hey, the fridge is making a weird noise. You might want to check it out. Except instead of a funky fridge, we're talking about things that could cause some serious trouble on the road.
Exactly. And the CDL manual makes it crystal clear that documenting everything is key. Whether it's something small or a major issue, writing it down, make sure that nothing gets missed and everyone's in the loop.
It's like a gift to the next driver and the mechanics who keep these rigs running. A well-documented post-trip report shows you're all about communication and teamwork.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Now, while the post-trip has a lot in common with the pre-trip, there are a few key differences to keep in mind. Remember when we talked about checking for leaks?
Oh yeah, the whole hissing like a viper thing?
Right. Well, during your post-trip, you really want to focus on those areas where fluids might have pooled up after the engine's been off for a while.
Yeah.
It's like being a detective. You're searching for any little sign of a leak that might not have been there during your pre-trip.
Sneaky leaks. So it's all about being extra careful, even more so than the pre-trip, because the truck's been working hard.
Absolutely. And don't forget those tires. After a long haul, they deserve a good once-over. Check for any cuts, bulges, or anything embedded in them. And while you're down there, give those brakes a visual inspection too.
Makes sense. You're on the lookout for any wear and tear that might have happened on your trip.
You got it. And here's a little pro tip. Always keep a notepad and pen handy in your truck to jot down anything you notice, even if it seems minor. That way you'll have a record of it and it won't slip your mind when it's time to fill out that post-trip report.
Gotta love those insider tips. So to wrap things up, this deep dive into the CDL manual has been eye-opening for sure. It's not just about memorizing a bunch of rules. It's about understanding that those rules are there to keep everyone safe and make sure these big rigs are in tip-top shape.
Well said. It's about taking pride in what you do, knowing that truckers play a vital role in keeping this country moving.
It's about being a true professional. And on that note, we've reached the end of our CDL deep dive. To all you future truckers out there, remember those pre-trip and post-trip inspections are your ticket to a safe and successful career on the open road. Drive safe out there. And that's a wrap on another deep dive. Until next time, keep those wheels turning and those minds engaged.